As I was listening to the 60s channel on Sirius XM, I heard Marvin Gaye's version of I Heard It Through the Grapevine. And as I listened to his powerful version of that song, I wondered, I wonder where that term came from. In this episode of History of Everyday Sayings, you and I will explore the origin of where this phrase comes from. I heard it through the grapevine. Hello, Steve Carter here, your host for the History of Everyday Sayings. I thank you for joining me. Who is this show for? If you're a logophile, meaning, of course, a lover of words, a philomath, or you're simply someone who loves history tidbits you can share with friends and family, this show is for you. As I was listening to the 60s channel on Sirius XM radio, I heard Marvin Gaye belt out a classic Motown song called I Heard It Through the Grapevine. The opening lyrics go, "Ooh, I bet you wonder how I knew about your plans to make me blue with some other guy you knew before. Between the two of us guys, you know I love you more. It took me by surprise, I must say, when I found out yesterday. Don't you know that I heard it through the grapevine? Not much longer would you be mine. Ooh, I heard it through the grapevine. Ooh, I'm just about to lose my mind." This song had a very interesting history, and indeed it almost, never was released. According to Songfacts.com, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles were the first to record the song. Yes, but their version wasn't released until years later on an album called Special Occasion. The Isley Brothers had a crack at it, but their version wasn't released either. The songwriters, Whitfield and Strong, then asked Marvin Gaye to record the song, which he did. But Berry Gordy, the head of Motown Records, did not think the song was worthy to be released. He did finally allow Motown Records to release the song, that being the version recorded by Gladys Knight and the Pips. That version was quite the hit. It went all the way to number 2 on the Billboard Top 100, and it reached number 2 in November of 1967. So what about the version by Marvin Gaye? His version was on his 1968 album, initially entitled In the Groove, and later retitled I Heard It Through the Grapevine. And there was a really good reason to retitle that album to I Heard It Through the Grapevine. A Chicago area disc jockey by the name of Rodney Jones at WVON started playing it on the air, and Berry Gordy, president of Motown Records, said, yeah, let's go ahead and release Marvin Gaye's version as a single. That version, that hit number 1 on the top 40, and arguably it has become one of Marvin Gaye's signature songs. What exactly does I Heard It Through the Grapevine or Heard It Through the Grapevine really mean? According to gingersoftware.com, the phrase heard it on the grapevine or heard it through the grapevine is a nice way of saying that one heard the information by means of gossip and rumor. So why exactly are grapevines associated with rumors? According to mentalfloss.com, there are several possible explanations. They cite one by Grunge, telling us the idiom might date back to the development of the telegraph system in the 1800s. In order to send and receive messages, miles of telegraph lines were strung up on poles and knitted together throughout the country. Because these lines resembled the lines used to control the growth of grapevines, people began to say they, quote, heard it through the grapevine, close quote. using it as slang for the telegraph system. The phrase grew in popularity during the Civil War when communication through the grapevine became pressing. Information heard on the grapevine could be questionable, as Confederate soldiers were known to try and spread misinformation to confuse Union forces. Over time, it came to mean information through word of mouth that may be of questionable veracity. One Union lieutenant named Horace Carpenter wrote in 1891 that during the time he was a prisoner of war in a Confederate prison, rumors were rampant about prisoner exchanges that never came to pass. The grapevine spoke to us of little else. The main feature of this prison telegraph was its complete unreliability. As I remember, it was never correct, even by accident. In another theory, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, people would congregate at the Old Grapevine, a tavern in New York City. Like is common with most bars, rumors and gossip flowed freely, and it was possible to hear something at the Grapevine. While the phrase doesn't seem to be invented there, that establishment may have helped to popularize it. Turning to phrases.org.uk, to the question, what's the origin of heard it through the grapevine? This site tells us the first practical public demonstration of the telegraph was given in 1844 when Samuel Morse sent a message from Washington to Baltimore. The invention was widely welcomed as a means of rapidly communicating news. It soon became clear, however, that many close communities already had effective word-of-mouth communications. Soon after the telegraph was invented, the term grapevine telegraph was coined, first recorded in a U.S. dictionary in 1852. In 1876, the Reno Evening Gazette ran an article about a bumper corn and grape crop. They commented on the fact that people who were in the communities already were aware of that bumper crop. The article commented it would seem these people had some mysterious means of conveying the news, like the famous grapevine telegraph from the American Civil War. The Pioneer Press and Tribune tells us, while the first telegraphic news of Custer's death reached them at midnight, that referring to the Custer's last stand, the first telegraphic news of Custer's death reached them at midnight, the Indians loafing about town were inquiring about it at noon. Australia has the term bush telegraph, and that was also, according to this post, likely influenced by grapevine telegraph, and that also referred to informal networks that passed information about police movements to convicts who were hiding in the bush. It was recorded in 1878 by an Australian author by the name of Morris, and he quotes, "The police are baffled by the number and activity of the bush telegraphs," close quote. In the UK, it was the jungle telegraph, referring to communications and outposts of the British Empire around that same period. And even this British publication gives a nod to the Motown song by telling us, of course, Heard It Through the Grapevine is best known to us as the Motown song, recorded by Gladys Knight and the Pips in 1967 and by Marvin Gaye in 1968. It is salutary that whilst the telegraph is long gone, the person-to-person communication that preceded it, well, that is still going strong. If you would like to take a deeper dive into more details about this phrase, all of the sources that I cited, they will all be linked in the show notes, also known as the show description. If you have not yet subscribed to History of Everyday Sayings, I encourage you to do that where you get your podcasts. It is, of course, free to follow or subscribe, and when you do follow, you will never miss an episode. If you have a phrase and wonder where that phrase comes from, and you would like us to do an investigation, or you would like to be in touch for any reason, email me at cartermethod@gmail.com. To listen to previous episodes and other podcasts in the Stress Relief Radio Network, visit us at stressreliefradio.com. Until our next visit together, your host here, Stephen Carter, wishing for you and your loved ones blessings in abundance.